According to another point of view, the one of Antonio Moreira Teixeira, who is hidden president, quality criteria are to be analyzed according to different generations. First generation: OpenCourseware free access to materials produced by high-profile education institutions in order to support face-to-face teaching. Second generation: open content resources, free access to materials produced by single or network education institutions or editors in order to support autonomous independent learning in the context of open learning, distance learning or e-learning. Third generation: user-generated content free access by expert individuals or organizations to materials produced for independent learning for use and redesign. First generation level: content reputability and technological access focus in early days was on the scientific value of the materials and their technological accessibility. Second generation level: learning design and student support focus shifts to the pedagogical value of the materials and how they are prepared to allow for significant learning experiences. Third generation level: assessment and collaboration focus is now on assuring validation of learning experiences and how they generate massive interaction.
So what makes a good OER? What are the important aspects that we should take into consideration when actually selecting a good OER to use in our teaching context? Well, as has been pointed out previously, different OERs are also produced in different contexts, which means also that they were aiming at different values as well. Well, let's start by the beginning. What makes a good OER is, of course, the content and the value of the information that it conveys. Who actually assures the content? Who actually assures the quality of that content? Depending on who actually is the producer, these can change. Of course, if the OER is produced in the context of a higher education institution, of course, it's the institutional own quality system that is assuring the quality of the resource. If otherwise it is produced in a different context, for instance, an individual is producing it outside the institutional context, then it is the value of the producer itself who is assuring the resource, but also the community of users who is reassuring the quality of this resource. Community values are important in assessing the quality of resources nowadays when we're talking about, for instance, what we now can call the third generation, the user content generation producing OERs. But important aspects that should be also taken into consideration are, of course, if an OER can be easily interchanged, can be easily actually completed, reused. And in that sense, it is important that the OERs are protected with open license, which usually it's a Creative Commons license. But there are also other types of licenses as well. And they basically what assure you is, as a user, the capability of improving or adjusting, adapting this resource to your context of use, to your own experience, and also to improve the content in the sense that new information can be added. Another important aspect when selecting an OER, apart from, of course, its findability and usability, is also the possibility, as just been said, to adjust this OER to your own specific context of use. This can mean, for instance, the translation of the material, if you're using it in a different language than the original one. But also, there are specific aspects, contextual aspects, that can be added to the resource. So the possibility of actually adapting it and adjusting it is also very important. Resources are produced for a specific context, but they can be and should be reused for many other contexts of use as well. And so how they can be adjusted and adapted to this is what makes them very valuable and important as resources, because they can be continuously improved, updated and adjusted, and in that sense enriched as learning materials. Going back just a while to the different generations, in which they can be produced. Of course, it's also important that apart from the richness and the value, the scientific value of the content, they should, as much as possible, also be designed for context of distance learning or a context of blended learning. So it is important that these resources are not just book chapters or texts that are just available, information as such, but if possible, they could also be designed in order to allow for an independent or autonomous learning experience by the users, by the learners. Well, in a sense, we can say that these are probably the most important aspects that should be taken into consideration when selecting a good OER to use for a teaching and learning experience.